I met a gentleman who was actually from Ireland. We're just going to call him Jack. Right? He had a relative of his pass away, and apparently they left him their house. Jack scoops up his wife and kid. He's got a wife named Elizabeth and their son Trevor. He's 12. They decide, all right, we're going to move to this new house. They move in. The first thing Elizabeth wants to know is, how did this family member pass away? Because they never got that information. The people who informed him said that it was confidential, which I think is highly suspect. They move into this flat. The house itself is on like a 1/4 acre of land. That's it. They're surrounded by a little bit of woods, pastures, stone fences, hills, and then if you follow the road like 6 miles down the way, there's a town proper. So they move into this house, and everything starts off fine. The only thing that made them feel uncomfortable was the house was filled with Gaelic and old school Irish effigies and religious stuff, like old gods kind of stuff. They start getting rid of some of that stuff off the rip. Now, Trevor, growing up in a more city-style environment, he was ecstatic to go out and play and run around the yard. He's getting really big into the outdoorsy stuff. But they didn't like the fact that he would go out and he would go so far out that when it was time to call him back, they couldn't find him sometimes, or he was so far out they couldn't hear him. And I guess the cell phone reception out there was garbage. So they had a landline. And when you got closer to the town, you got service back. So they didn't really have any kind of way to keep in touch with him when he was out there. So they kept yelling at him, like, stay close to the house. And he had kites, he had planes, he had RC cars. But the biggest issue was when you went over the first hill behind their house, it's a huge hill. It's like a solid, like, 1/4 mile of just uphill grade. And on the other end of that hill was a pond, a big pond, a really big pond. And he used to like to play down there. He'd skip rocks, he'd mess around in the beach, sand, whatever. The problem of, as you can imagine, is when his mom and dad wanted to get a hold of him to let him know it was time to come inside for dinner or whatever, then whichever parent chose to go do it that day, they had to walk all the way uphill to the top of the hill to get their son's attention and make him come back up. And if they couldn't get his attention, they had to walk down the hill to get it. You know, it was becoming a nuisance. The dad eventually orders in a pair of walkie-talkies. So they have a walkie-talkie in the kitchen, and the son would take a walkie-talkie with him whenever he went outside. After this walkie-talkie system proved to be very effective, they've been out there now for about a year and a half. One day, Trevor comes home, and he's telling his parents about what he did today, how he was playing out there in the pond, and he asked his parents, do our neighbors own horses? The dad's like, I don't know. The neighbor's house, we're really close to their land, but we're at like the back of their land. Their house is like several miles down. Elizabeth got the idea. She's like, we should probably go introduce ourselves. They technically are our closest neighbors, apart from the town itself. Why don't we drive over there one day and bring like a basket of bread or something? And he's like, yeah, it's a good idea. So they wait till the weekend comes around. They drive all the way around, go to the house, and they knock on the door. The neighbor opens the door, and it's an older gentleman and an older woman, and, you know, they're really nice. They welcome him to the area. After the guy offers Jack a beer, they're drinking some beer. The wives are talking. Trevor's just kind of meandering around outside. He made sure to bring some toys for himself and some stuff to keep him occupied. While Jack and this older gentleman are talking, I think it said his name was like Benny. While Jack and Benny are talking, Benny makes a remark about how the land is really nice and fertile. It's great for the livestock. He's been living out there comfortably. The land takes really good care of him. But he made a comment about, you know, everything's great except for that damn pond. And just kind of kept pushing with the conversation. And Jack was a little like, huh. He's like, yeah, my son plays by that pond every day after school. And on the weekends, we have to chase him down to get him out of there. And Benny got this look on his face of absolute abject terror. And he looks at Jack and he's like, do not let him play by that pond. It's dangerous. Do not let him anywhere near that pond. If you value the life of your kid, keep him away from that pond. So Jack's like, the conversation is now just drastically changed. And he's obviously like, why? Like, what's wrong with it? Is the water bad, or what's the deal? And Benny's just like, there's something in that pond. Now, he's being very, very blunt and up forward about this whole thing, but he basically says there's things in that pond that are dangerous. Now, if you know anything about the wildlife of Ireland, you can just jump into pretty much any pond you want and you'll be all right. So he's looking at Benny like, what's in the pond? What do you mean it's dangerous? And Benny makes a comment about a kelpie, and course, Jack's like, really, Kelby? You don't want my son to play around your pond because you're afraid some ancient horse demon monster is gonna attract my kid to touch him and drag him into the pond? And Betty just gives him this look, and he's like, do with this information what you will, but I'm telling you, keep your son away from that pond. And he mentions that it's a lot deeper than it looks. And he's like, okay, so I won't let him swim in it, but why can't he play around it? And Benny's just like, do what you want. So Jack changes the topic, but he's looking at his son like, he knows how much Trevor loves playing by this pond, and he really doesn't want to take that away from him, especially being the fact there's really nothing else for him to do. So fast forward the next day, Jack's talking to Trevor. He's telling him like, hey, look, buddy, I need you to do me a favor. He's like, yeah, Dad, of course, whatever. And he's like, I need you to promise me that if you ever see any horses or a stranger out by the pond that's not one of me, your mom, or Benny or his wife, that you need to come home immediately and run home. And if you see a horse, because Benny clued Jack in, Benny's only got sheep and goats. So Trevor tells his dad, like, all right, so if I see anyone I don't know, I would come running home anyway. And if I see a random horse, I'll come running home. And Jack makes him like, I'm serious. Like, you need to promise me, like, swear, like, this is serious. If you ever see a horse or someone you don't know, you need to get, I don't care what you're playing with, I don't care how much fun you're having, don't just, like, get away from it, come home immediately. So he's kind of freaking his son out a little bit. His son's like, oh, okay, all right, I get it. For about a week, believe it or not, Trevor actually stayed away from the pond and just played at the top of the hill instead. I guess he freaked him out about it. As time continued to go on, some weird stuff started happening around the house. I guess Jack didn't really notice it because he was going to work every day, and Elizabeth was kind of like becoming more and more distant and spacey and jumpy. So one day Jack is like, is something wrong? You seem a lot more jumpy. You always seem really tired. Like you haven't slept. She's a stay-at-home wife. And so he's like, you know what? What's something wrong? She starts to open up to Jack and start telling him that she's been seeing, hearing, and feeling weird things ever since they moved into this house. And he's like, all right, well, elaborate. What do you mean? And then she proceeds to tell him some absolutely off-the-wall, insane shit that Jack was actually pissed. Not at her. He didn't think she was delusional. He was very believing of his wife, which is rare. Usually you see scary movies and the husband's always an idiot or just downplays it all. He was very receptive and very, very responsive, but he was mad because he was like, why didn't you mention this stuff before? Why did you wait till a year and a half later that now it's so bad that you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're losing weight, you're exhausted, and I so much as sneeze and you almost pass out because you jump so hard. Why'd you wait till this point? And she's like, oh, I really wanted it to work, and I thought maybe it was just me, and I was just being paranoid, and Trevor loves it out here, and this and that. And he's like, that's not an excuse. You should have mentioned it. So some of the stuff that she says she saw happen, she mentioned that one day she came home. It was dark. Her and Trevor went to some function in the town, like a play or something. She came home. Upon arrival, the lights wouldn't turn on. So she's messing with the light switch. Trevor runs inside. He's like, I know where the power box is. I'll get it. And she's like, you know, hey, be careful. And he goes down into like a small cellar, and she's looking around, and for a brief moment, she said that the clouds parted and the moon shone through just enough that she looks to her right, and all of the dining room furniture is gone. It's just gone. And she's looking at it like, where's my table and chairs and my armoire and my dish cabinet? And she's thinking, oh my God, we got robbed. The clouds close over the moon again, and it gets dark. And she yells out to Trevor, like, hurry up, turn the lights on. He's like, I think I found it. And when she turns to the left, there was a lightning flash, and all of the dining room furniture was in the living room, but it was like stacked on top of each other in some pyramid-shaped style shit, like balancing on the coffee table. We're talking a huge ass dining table balancing with chairs on top of it on a coffee table made of glass. She said she blinked in shock. There was a thunderclap. She tensed up. The lights came on because Trevor found the switch and flipped the lights on. And she said the thunderclap kind of masked it. It sounded like a fuck ton of furniture got moved all at the same time. And she turns to the right and all the furniture's back in its place. But she swears that she Like, it was unmistakable. That was just one of the major ones. Then there was times she said that the radio kept turning on and it would just play static, but every once in a while, as she would reach to turn it off, a voice would come through and it would say something in a language she couldn't understand, and she'd turn it off and she'd walk away and it would turn back on louder, and it was like she was arguing with the radio until she finally got fed up and unplugged it. And then when she unplugged it, their alarm clock upstairs was like one of those radio alarm clocks. It just picked up where it left off upstairs, but now it was so loud upstairs you could hear it downstairs. And of course, Trevor can't really attest to any of these things because he was always outside playing by the pond. He wasn't home. Jack was at work. So Elizabeth, most of the time, was home alone. But what really messed her up was she goes upstairs and she rips this clock out of the wall and she throws it away, and she goes back downstairs and she's like, enough of this. She tries to go back to cooking dinner or whatever it was she was doing. And then the voice in this weird language was coming from the walkie-talkie. Her son's walkie-talkie. The walkie-talkie he always has on him when he's outside. Who the fuck's taking his walkie-talkie and talking to her on it? So she grabs it, she's clicking, and she's yelling into the walkie-talkie, "Who is this?" And of course, Trevor, after getting the shit scared out of him from his mom randomly screaming at him on the radio, would answer and be like, "What are you talking about?" And she would talk to Trevor a little bit and be like, "Who was that? Who was who? Who was on the radio?" "No one. You're on the radio. I heard a man on the radio talking." She's like, "It's just me out here, Mom, and I wasn't using the radio." So she tried to put her mind at ease after doing some research that sometimes if you don't buy encrypted radios, it's not uncommon to pick up on signals of truckers, police banter through the police radios, radio stations. So she was like, maybe I'm just picking up some radio station or something. And that worked for a little while. She bought in that one for a little while until the TV started turning on by itself and she could hear the same voice in the same language talking to her through the TV static. So now she's basically got the TV unplugged, the radio unplugged, threw away the alarm clock and got just a regular analog clock, and she's terrified of the radio, but she never wants to turn it off because she's afraid Trevor won't be able to get a hold of her, so she just has the volume on kind of low so that when it would spark up and start talking in some cryptic shit, she couldn't really hear it over the hustle and bustle of whatever she was doing. There's times she would go upstairs and after having freshly made the beds, she'd walk into the room and there's just a bare mattress, and then she'd like look around the room and try to figure out what's going on, and she'd leave the room and come back, and she'd come back and bed's perfectly made. It was screwing with her royally. Like, it was really messing with her. She couldn't listen to the radio. She couldn't listen to the TV because this voice thing would interrupt whatever she was listening or watching, and it would scare the shit out of her. So she's locked in this house all day by herself most of the time with nothing to even listen to, except for maybe like throw YouTube on her phone and listen to that, which is what she ended up doing. But she didn't like doing that because when she had her headphones in or she was playing something on the phone, if it was too loud, she couldn't hear the radio that Trevor had. But she didn't want to turn the volume up on the radio for Trevor because then this voice would scare the shit out of her. So she just was locked in this perpetual state of being stuck in this home in silence all day, every day by herself. And that was one of the reasons why she was getting so jumpy, is you spend enough time alone in silence, every sound you hear makes you jump. And as far as not sleeping, she kept having these weird dreams about something in water sounds. The voice was in her dreams now, and she kept having a dream of a red-eyed creature in water, couldn't figure out what it was about. And in the meantime, Jack's just living life. Jack's at work most of the time, and when he comes home, he eats dinner, he hangs out with his family for a little bit. Maybe they'll watch a family movie when they plug the TV back in. But one thing that also was driving her nuts is it never happened when Trevor or Jack were in the house. It only happened when she was alone, which was often she was losing her mind, but she was trying to hold it together for the sake of her family. What finally sunk the ship for her was she thought she heard Trevor screaming for help on the radio, and she turns it up and it sounds like Trevor's voice and he's screaming, and in the background of the radio it sounds like water sloshing and splashing around, and it sounds like a horse neighing really loud. She's freaking out, so she runs as fast as she can up that hill and looks over the hill, and there's Trevor just chilling there playing with like a remote control boat in the pond or whatever. Everything's fine, but that was it. She cracked. She calls Trevor back in And Trevor's obviously like, why did you use the radio? And she's hysterical in tears, out of breath, looks like she just saw a ghost. Trevor's like, oh shit. So he goes up with his mom, they go home. That's when she finally pulled Jack aside and started telling him, like, this is the stuff I've been dealing with since we moved here. So Jack has a flashback. We don't know how my family member died, and they won't tell us. And now my neighbor warns me about something in the pond. He put two and two together, started looking for a new place to live. He got in touch with the Catholic Church first, and he asked the Catholic Church to come down and bless the home and put my wife's mind at ease. If you could come down and bless the land and bless the pond. And something that really sent the point home for Jack, mind you, this town's an old town, like World War I. When the preacher finds out where they live, he gets a little panicked himself. He tells him, like, you really shouldn't be out here. Why'd you pick to move here? Jack explains to him, like, I had a family member pass away. He left me the house. The house is paid for. We wanted to change the scenery, and it just worked out perfectly. The priest is just like, you need to be careful here. And he's like, why? And he's like, well, your previous family member, let's just say they didn't attend Catholic Mass. And he's like, yeah, we saw a lot of like old gods, religious stuff in here when we first moved in. He's like, yeah, they were very big into the old gods. They had no interest in modern day religion at all, especially Christianity. Like, all right, well, that's weird to know, but okay. But can you bless my home and maybe this weirdness will finally stop? And he introduces the priest to Elizabeth. Elizabeth is just pouring her soul out to this priest about what she's seeing. And she's like, please don't think I'm crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. I've never had mental health issues in my life. Neither has anyone in my family. I don't know what's going on. And the priest is just like chilling. Like, I believe you. I didn't say you're crazy. I believe you. And that really threw them back as they're like, was this a common occurrence? This wasn't exactly in, the notes for the house. And he's like, well, put it to you this way. If you believe something hard enough, you damn near might make it exist, at least to yourself. He thinks that the person that lived there before them believed in the old gods and the old creatures and the old ways so hard that it literally manifested a Kelpie's existence, and it lived in the pond, and it was evil as fuck. So Trevor was upstairs, and he was listening to this. Now, instead of being, this is where I have to say, Trevor, if you ever see this, you're a moron, is instead of seeing this as a warning of maybe I should stay away from the pond, old boy says, hey, I'ma catch it. So Trevor comes up with the harebrained idea, using the internet, trying to find a way to summon a Kelpie. He found some bullshit ritual. He tries to summon this thing like a week later, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, because I asked this while he was telling me the story. I'm like, it worked, didn't it? And he's like, what? I was like, when you had the priest come bless your house, did it work? I bet it worked, didn't it? And he's like, she didn't see anything else after that, so I guess it worked. And I was like, Ave Christus Rex. Anyway, Trevor goes out there and tries to perform a ritual to summon a Kelpie. Doesn't go very well. Jack goes out there one day trying to find Trevor. Trevor didn't bring his radio this time. He forgot it. So he has both radios with him, and he's walking up the hill, and he's going there to give Trevor his radio, like, yeah, have fun, here's your radio. Anyway, he's walking down the hill, and as he's walking down the hill, he starts hearing staticky, weird language gobbledygook coming through the radio, and he's holding both radios, and he's looking at the one like, so he clicks it, and it starts to do a feedback loop. And when it's doing the feedback loop between the two radios, and it's ear-shatteringly, piercingly loud, he holds down both buttons, and instead of it being gobbledygook this time and being all weird, it's in clear, straight English, and it's talking about consuming the flesh of the young one. He finds Trevor on the other side of the pond, and he's got candles and weird shit around. And Jack immediately puts two and two together, and he runs along the bank of this pond to get to the other side. Now remember, it's a big pond. He's running as fast as he can, and he said as he was maybe like 100 feet away from Trevor standing there, scared out of his mind, not saying a damn thing, and he just remembered like laser vision, tunnel visioning in on his son, and he hears a lot of water splashing around, like something big is coming out of the water, and he's just focusing on his kid, and he's just fucking for his son, and right as he goes to grab his son, he wraps his arm around him and he goes to pull him, and he doesn't move. Imagine running full sprint and you stick your arm out and you wrap yourself around a telephone pole and you just And that's what he did. He thought he was going to scoop his kid up, and instead he clotheslined himself on his own kid. He gets up, he grabs his son by the shirt, and he pulls him back, and the kid's just not moving. It's like the kid's made of stone, and he's attached to the earth. He can't move this kid, and the kid is just staring out into the pond. Trevor's just like dead-eyed locked at something in the pond. Jack is smart enough to like, I'm not even going to look at whatever this thing is, and then he looks up the hill that's on the other side of the pond. On the other side of the other hill were the neighbors, Benny and his wife. He looked up and saw an old man in overalls and flannel with a hunting rifle, and he's shooting down the hill at whatever in the pond. That bang, I guess, loosens Trevor's gaze up enough that he's able to scoop up his kid, and he starts freaking quarterbacking it up the hill towards Benny. And he said the whole time you could hear what sounded like splashing water and the screams of the damned, like it was the neighing of a horse, but it sounded just wrong, like something that was crawling out of hell. Him being a religious man as well, he really does believe that his boy Trevor fucked around and was gonna find out if he didn't get there when he did. He runs up the hill and he gets to Benny, and Benny, I fucking told you to leave that damn pond alone. Why didn't you fucking listen to me? Jack's like, not the time. Go. So they run back to his house. He gets into Benny's house. He grabs the landline. He calls his wife back in their house. And he's like, Elizabeth, get the car and get to Benny's right now. We gotta go. Hurry up. I can't explain. And she's like, where are you? Where did you go? Where's the radio? Where? And he's like, get in the car and get over here right now. And she's like, I can't. And he's like, why not? And he's like, nothing's working. The car won't start. The lights won't turn on. The water in the faucets won't even turn on. It's like the whole house just died. Because while all this was going on, Elizabeth heard the distant echoes of those gunshots. So she ran, because she knows that that was probably coming from the neighbor's house. You know, when you're in that kind of country, things echo forever. So she got in the car, and she couldn't find Jack or Trevor, so she just, I'm going. And she got in the car, and it wouldn't start. And it wouldn't even click. Like, it wasn't even doing, like, the dead battery, tick, 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 tick. It didn't make any, it was dead. So he yells at Benny, and he's like, Benny, I think something's going on at my house. My wife said the lights won't turn on, the water won't turn on, the car won't start. Benny says, well, follow me, and they hop on Benny's tractor, an old school tractor. It's very slow. It's faster than you can run, but it's not very fast. It goes like 25 miles an hour. So they start making it back. About halfway back, they see Elizabeth hauling ass up the road towards them. So they scoop her up. They go back to Benny's place. They called the church, they called the cops, and they called the electrician to go to the house. They stayed there overnight because all this happened around sundown. The whole reason Jack went over there to begin with was because, one, he thought his son forgot his radio, but two, it was also coming around dinner time. It was wild. They went back to the home after Jack didn't ground Trevor for life, but he told him, like, you're an idiot. So they packed up all their stuff. They went back into the town. They stayed in a motel in the town until they were able to sort things out. And he said they lived in that motel for almost 3 months, waiting to get someone to sell the house. Now, he thinks that while they were gone, the Catholic Church handled it. He just said that when they finally did go back to the house to pack up the furniture and everything, the house just felt more at peace, and it didn't feel as scary. It felt like it was just a normal house again. Even his wife said she felt pretty good. She didn't get the vibe off of it. Nothing weird happened. But they weren't staying. They were absolutely not. But the Catholic Church called them while they were living in the motel and told them, like, hey, we wanted to just let you know you're going to be okay. God's watching you. You know, everything's going to be all right. And he was like, that's a really random phone call to get a month and a half after my son almost got abducted by a fucking Kelpie or demon or whatever it was. So yeah, about 3 years after that, he moved to America, and now he lives in, of all places, Pennsylvania. But yeah, Kelpie. Not the way I thought that story was going to go when he originally told me it. I forgot Kelpies were even a thing. But yeah, what do you guys think it was? I think it was a damn demon. I think whoever lived there was messing around where they shouldn't have been, summoned some shit they shouldn't have. It ganked their ass, and it decided to go live in the pond, and Home Slice was living there again, and it was just having fun fucking with them, because let's be honest, demons love fear and doubt and stress and anxiety and pain and suffering and confusion. They love that stuff. So it was just fucking with them. And then Home Slice got the bright idea of, I'm gonna catch it, and went and tried to catch it, and he almost got clapped. That's what I think happened. But anyway, I'd love to know y'all's thoughts. If y'all enjoyed this, let me know in the comments. Leave a like, please. Share it with your friends. And if you were listening to this while you were driving, drive safe. And if you're watching this while you're driving, watch out for kelpies. Will do. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, maybe even leave a comment, and check out my other videos, like this one. Bye-bye.